Welcome back. Now we've created a bullet hit interface and implemented it on our enemy class, but we can also implement this bullet hit interface on other classes. So we're going to give that a try in this video. Let's create a new class. Now this will be for an explosive, so let's go ahead and create a new C++ class and derive this from actor, and let's call this explosive. Go ahead and click Create Class. Now, while we're waiting for our class to be generated, let's make sure we have the assets we need for this explosive class. Make sure you've gone to the GitHub page, the link will be in the resources for this video, and go to assets/sounds and download ambient.zip. We'll be using some sounds from Ambient in this video. Go ahead and extract those, and you should get a folder filled with some sounds. Now let's create a new folder. Let's go to _game/assets/sounds, and let's create the folder here and call this ambient. And here we can import those sounds from the ambient folder. So go ahead and select them all and drag them in. And now we have some sounds. Now the ones I'm interested in are Explosion 1 and Explosion 2. Let's check those out. Now we can create a sound cue from these by right-clicking Explosion 1, create cue, and let's call this Explosion_cue. Now let's open up Explosion cue and drag Explosion 2 into it, and we can create a random node and make sure both of these are plugged in and hook that to the output. Now we can save, and we now have an explosion cue. Now let's go back into Visual Studio, and we now have an explosive class. Now in this explosive class, I'd like to implement the interface. So the first thing I'm going to do is inherit from the iBulletHit interface, which means that we need to include the header. Now, as always in .h files, we need to include above the .generated .h, so let's include bullet_hit_interface.h, and we'll go ahead and inherit from that by saying public iBulletHit_interface. And now our explosive class inherits from both actor and iBulletHit_interface. Now we can override that function bullet hit. Let's go ahead and put it in our public section down here, and it's going to be virtual bullet hit_implementation. Remember, we need to override the implementation version, and this takes an fhit result called hit result, and this is an override. And I forgot the void keyword since this is a void function. Now let's go ahead and give this a function body and explosive.cpp. So I'm going to add it down here at the bottom. I'm going to fully qualify its function name and give it a function body. Now what do we want to do for our explosive when we hit it with a bullet? Well, I'd like to play a sound and spawn some particles, so let's add a private section for these variables. I'm going to forward declare a uParticleSystem. This will be a pointer, and I'm going to call this ExplodeParticles. And I'm going to head right over to enemy.h and steal our U property for the particle system on the enemy class. So here in explosive, I'm going to use this U property, edit anywhere, blueprint read write, category combat with meta allow private access. And I'm going to add a comment here and say explosion when hit by a bullet. Now I'm also going to add a sound cue, and I might as well just steal the declaration for the sound cue from enemy.h. So I'm going to go ahead and steal all of that and put it here in explosive.h, and we can even call this impact sound and leave everything as is. Now I'm going to go to enemy.cpp and copy the last three includes, since I'll be using those, and paste those in explosive.cpp. And I'll also take enemy's implementation code for playing the sound and the particles and paste that in here as well. Now, so far it looks like pretty much the same thing as the enemy version, but we're gonna do a little more here. Now, it's not impact particles. For explosive, we call this explode particles. So I'm gonna change that in both the if check and the spawn emitter at location function call. Now, as soon as we play the sound and spawn the particles, this is an explosive, so the explosive needs to disappear. So I'm going to go ahead and call destroy, and later on when we implement the ability to cause damage, we can do that here as well. So before destroy, let's add a to-do comment here and say to-do apply explosive damage. Okay, let's go ahead and compile this. Now, while this is compiling, I'm going to come into the game folder and create a new folder called explosives. And then I'm going to go down into C++ classes/shooter, right click on explosive and create a blueprint. And I'm going to stick this blueprint right into the explosives folder and call this explosive BP and create blueprint class. Now the blueprint needs a mesh, so I'm going to click add component and choose static mesh and call this explosive mesh. Now what kind of mesh do we need for our explosive? Well, since we added the factory level to our project, we have some assets to choose from. Let's click on the content folder, and here in search content, let's type barrel. And we have lots of different barrels to choose from. I'm going to take this SM Barrel 02 and use that. So in explosive BP, I'm going to take explosive mesh, select that, and under static mesh, I'm going to type barrel and select SM Barrel 02. And now we have this nice red barrel that looks like something that contains flammable liquid or something like that. I'm going to compile and save that. And I have yet another typo, and this is from probably rushing too much, but it looks like I misspelled implementation. This should say implementation rather than implementation, which is what I spelled. So I'm going to spell it correctly. There's an AT missing there, so I need to correct that here in explosive.h as well as explosive.cpp. So after fixing that, I'm going to compile again. And now we've compiled, so we can go back into Unreal Engine. And now we see if we select explosive BP self, we have explode particles and impact sound. Now for the sound, I'd like to go to our folder _game/assets. I'm going to remove barrel from the search bar there and go to sounds and ambient. And we have our explosion cue here. So let's use that. So for impact sound, we're going to use explosion cue. And for explode particles, there's actually a really nice explosion that comes with the Paragon Twin Blast asset pack. So if you added Twin Blast, then you can go into Paragon Twin Blast and go to Effects, Particles, Abilities, Vortex Grenade, FX, and we have Vortex Grenade Explode Ballistic. There's actually quite a few of these particle systems, so you can go through and take a look at all of them. Here's the Vortex Grenade Explode Ballistic. It's quite an impressive explosion. So I'm going to use that. So here in Explosive BP, I'm going to type Vortex Grenade _ explode and choose explode ballistic. Now I'll go ahead and compile and save this, and now we're ready to place an explosive BP into the world. So let's open our explosives folder and drag in an explosive BP and hit play and go ahead and shoot this. And it exploded, it disappeared, it played the explosive sound, it spawned the particles, and everything looks great. Okay, this will conclude this video. Now, obviously there are more things we can do with this. We can use the explosion to apply damage. There's a lot of things we can do. But for now, this is enough for this video. And in the next video, we're going to work on implementing more behavior for the bullet hit. I'll see you in the next video.